This story, the one you sent about Letcher County, Kentucky, it really stuck with me. I mean, a judge, a sheriff, friends for so long, and then this, it's just, well, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It really makes you question everything you think you know about small towns, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You picture, like, peaceful communities, not something like this.
Exactly. So we've got Judge Kevin Mullins and Sheriff Stines, and it seems everyone in Letcher County knew these guys. And then, September 19th of this year, everything changes. Sheriff Stines, he shoots and kills Judge Mullins right there inside the courthouse, in the judge's chambers.
And it was all caught on security footage.
You know, I read that even without audio, the footage is incredibly disturbing.
It's just a truly awful scene, especially when you consider they showed it in court during Stines' hearing. People were devastated. His own daughter was there. Can you imagine?
Just heartbreaking. And it feels like the biggest question here is why? What would drive a sheriff, someone sworn to uphold the law, to do something like this, especially to, someone he was close to? And the most unsettling thing is there's still no clear motive.
That's what makes this case so difficult to unravel. You're trying to make sense of the unthinkable. And the pieces of information we do have, well, some of them just raise more questions.
Like that detail about the phone calls right before the shooting?
Oh, right. So from what I understand, Stines is seen trying to call his daughter.
First from his phone, and then, this is the strange part, from Judge Mullins' phone.
So that immediately gets you thinking. What was so urgent that he needed to use the judge's phone?
Was he panicked, trying to leave some kind of message?
And then, to make things even more confusing, after the shooting, when they arrest Stines, he tells the officers they are trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
So we've got a shooting, a bizarre phone call, and now this statement about a kidnapping. It's just a lot to unpack.
It's like, where do you even begin? Was he really afraid for his family's safety? Or is that a story he made up after the fact? It's just hard to know what to believe. And it's important to remember, Stines wasn't exactly himself in the weeks leading up to all of this.
Yeah, this wasn't just some isolated incident. This NPR article you shared, it talks about a lawsuit against the sheriff's department. It seems like that might be important here.
Oh, yeah, that lawsuit. Well, it wasn't about, like, a parking ticket or something. These weren't some really serious accusations. Basically, a woman was saying that one of the deputies, a guy named Ben Fields, forced her into having sex. He was also Judge Mullins' bailiff, by the way.
Well, hold on. So this deputy, he was, trading favors for leniency, and this was happening at the courthouse.
That's right, in Judge Mullins' chambers, according to what the lawsuit says. Now, to be fair, both Mullins and Stines denied knowing anything about this beforehand. But still, it makes you wonder what kind of pressure they were both under.
Oh, absolutely. Especially Stines. I mean, the article mentions that he was a mess during his deposition for this lawsuit. Anxious, relying on his lawyer constantly, taking breaks, just all over the place.
Yeah, and then there's this other thing. Apparently, he put off calls from reporters about some fatal accident, told his staff not to say a word until he got back. Sounds like a guy who's, I don't know, maybe a little paranoid.
Yeah, and you can't help but wonder about his mental state, right? I mean, we can't diagnose anyone from here, but it does make you think about the toll it must have taken on him.
Oh, for sure. And remember that detail about him losing all that weight?
Yeah.
Like 40 pounds in 2 weeks? What he said was he couldn't even explain it himself. Something was definitely going on.
That's a lot of weight to lose that quickly. It's almost like he was falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where things get even more interesting. Statistically speaking, it's incredibly rare for a judge to be murdered. I mean, think about it. They're symbols of law and order, right? The article only mentions 2 cases since 1988, and both of those were, well, very unusual situations.
So for something like this to happen in Letcher County, this tiny, close-knit community, it makes you think there had to be something else going on behind the scenes.
Especially when you consider the judge and sheriff. They had lunch together just hours before the shooting.
Wait, they had lunch after that deposition with everything going on?
According to the article, yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
It's more than a little odd. If I were in their shoes, I'd be avoiding the guy not having a casual lunch.
You would think so, right? It's like throwing a wrench in the whole thing. What were they trying to do? Make peace? Or did something happen during lunch that set Stines off? It's just baffling.
It really is. It's like we're back at square one. But, it makes you wonder if we've been approaching this all wrong.
What do you mean?
Well, we keep coming back to Stines' mental state, to possible motives. But what if this lunch tells a different story? Maybe they were trying to work things out, save their careers, who knows?
Or maybe even trying to hide something, some secret that only they knew. Now that's a thought.
It's like the whole case is shifting right in front of us.
And that's what makes this so fascinating. We have this awful tragedy, but instead of clear answers, we just have more questions, more layers to peel back.
It's a good reminder that even in a place like this, a small town that seems so straightforward on the surface, there are always secrets.
And that even the people we trust, the ones who are supposed to uphold the law, well, they're capable of anything.
It really makes you think twice about judging a book by its cover, or, a town for that matter.
Absolutely. We tend to have these ideas about small towns, about how everyone knows everyone, how things are safe and predictable.
But this case really throws those assumptions out the window.
It does. And it forces us to confront the fact that darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places.
So we started with this tragic story, a judge and a sheriff, friends for years, and then, well, this happens.
And instead of easy answers, we just keep uncovering more questions. The lawsuit, the strange phone calls, that lunch right before the shooting, it's almost like something out of a movie.
It's definitely a reminder that real life can be stranger than fiction.
And a lot more complicated. We can speculate all we want about motives and cover-ups, but the truth is we may never know exactly what happened in those final moments.
That's true. And for the people of Letcher County, that uncertainty has to be incredibly difficult. To lose two prominent figures in such a shocking way, it's a lot to process.
It is. And it's a reminder that even in a small town, a place where everyone thinks they know each other, there are always secrets, always things going on beneath the surface.
And that even the people we trust, the ones who are supposed to be the pillars of the community, they're human too. They're capable of anything.
That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. And in this case, it's a truth that's left a community reeling, searching for answers that may never come.
It's a story that stays with you, that makes you question everything you thought you knew. And I think more than anything, it's a story that reminds us that sometimes the line between good and evil, between justice and chaos, is much thinner than we'd like to believe. And that even in a small town like Letcher County, those lines can blur, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions.
Well said. And I think that's an important note to end on. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for your insight. And to our listeners, as always, thank you for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.